procedurally animating 3-jointed legs, and I used it for animating its legs, and then made like a variation for an attack animation that will like stab the player, and then it'll like move around while the player is stuck to the legs, and also of course enable some particle blood and stuff. For mechanics, I got the idea to make the monster blind, so it'll only chase you if it hears a fan vent thing that runs in the background and turns on and off, and while it's playing it will cover your footsteps, making it safe to move. Then next I added in like a dialogue system, so I have some story elements and stuff, and I'll show like the player character's face with different emotions next to the text, and then I used all that stuff, a few other minor mechanics just to tie everything together, designed a few levels and added some visual details from the art kit and some animations and stuff for the intro and the exit and stuff, and was done.
80 to move. That's fairly slow. Space to jump. Just barely make that jump.
Oh dear, I'm running low on oxygen. We are going... Ooh! Oh, I like this.
Can't go back outside. I'm out of oxygen. Little physics boxes.
Cool. Perfect. Oh, well, he looks angry. Or upset.
Yeah! I think he wants to eat me. Get to the door. Get to the door.
Okay, so you can only move when the fan is running. Yeah, okay. Cool. It's like a stealth game, kind of. Yeah, the atmosphere is actually really cool.
I've took crates out of the way to get through. What crates? I don't see any crates. Is that the things that I was rolling around before?
No, so it can still find me if it walks into me, which it's still gonna do.
Okay, he's on the side. Now I can make it. Quickly. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so I have to go under and around. And now you're gonna go down? So I should have just run for it. So it's sort of like a stealth game, except the enemy is set up so that it patrols in a pattern.
Oh, is the fan gonna start?
Нет, он просто думает, за что ты меня так, за что, да, за что мне так, да,
Who's back there on? I think we're just going to have to make a run through if the fan stops this time. I made it to the escape ship. It's not going to be that easy. Yeah. I thought it was going to be something like that.
Thanks for watching. There are links in the description to all the games if you want to play them, and thanks to Josh, Philip, and Beeks for collaborating on this. You can find links to more of their stuff in the description as well, and please check out my Patreon if you'd like to.
Google – это новая платформа, где можно бесплатно освоить профессии и навыки будущего. Изучайте цифровые технологии для развития карьеры или продвижения своего бизнеса. И применяйте эти знания на практике. Учитесь, где вам удобно, в любое подходящее время. Приобретайте навыки и добивайтесь успеха с Google.
Я занимался духовными практиками больше 30 лет. Серьезно, сам удивляюсь.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Let's just get to the point. Why do we learn differential equations? Because they are the equations that describe how nature works. First one day said, boom, here's a bunch of stuff. And we said, cool, how's it all work? And the universe said differential equations. They're tough, often impossible to solve exactly, but you'll eventually get some cool stuff from them. Modeling how a population will grow involves differential equations. How any fluid moves, differential equations. Electromagnetism, which is how phones, radio, Wi-Fi, and GPS all work. Not one, but 4 differential equations known as Maxwell's equations. There's electric circuits, and even if something touches something else, and thus exerts a force, differential equations are used to describe the motion. If there's no physical contact, like with orbiting bodies, there's still a force, so there's still differential equations. Now, as with simple algebraic equations, differential equations can, and often do, have meaning when you read into the story that they're telling. Like, this equation could be saying, my age is y, and I'm exactly 5 years older than my brother, whose age is x. And we can use this to determine either of our ages given the other. Pretty boring, but we can give it meaning. This equation can have meaning too, or rather it asks a question. And that question is, what curve, or family of curves, have the property where the numerical value of the area under the curve is twice the numerical value of the arc length on that same interval for any given interval a to b. Well, to set this up, we start with this equation, which is the area under the curve itself, and this is the equation for the arc length on that same interval a to b. But we want to know when the left side always equals twice the right side. Now we can differentiate both sides to remove the integral sign, and we're left with a differential equation. From here we can square both sides, and then distribute, and we get that original equation. If you solve for that function y, you get this, which is the curve you're seeing here. So that's one example of meaning within a differential equation. But let's see how these really describe some real-world situations, because it's not always obvious what story these equations tell, or how they show up in general. And since I always love bringing up the TV show Numbers when I can, here's a perfect example. So check out this scene from an episode where law enforcement is trying to catch a couple committing crimes as they travel across the United States.
When we plot your movements against those of your targets, the pattern makes itself known.
And when we plot your path against Hoyle and Winters, we got this.
Yeah, this is the Red Desert robbery. The missing point on a curve that I didn't even realize I was looking at. It's a variation on something called a pursuit curve.
Alright, so what's happening here is the FBI has been chasing this couple across the country, but hasn't caught them yet. So the mathematicians plotted the paths both the criminals and the FBI took to see if they could make some predictions about where the criminals will strike next. And this is related to pursuit curves. A pursuit curve is simply the curve traced out by one object chasing another, although there are usually conditions listed for something to be technically considered a pursuit curve. But this could apply to a cheetah chasing down a gazelle, or one aircraft chasing another, for example. So let's see how we can determine the curve that the chasing object is always moving in the direction of the other, and it turns its nose as needed during pursuit. In reality, this could be like a plane wanting its forward-facing guns always aimed at the target or something. Anyways, what you're seeing here is a snapshot of the chase, and we can represent the current positions of each plane with a vector. I'll say C and M for cat and mouse. The other thing we know is that at this time, or really any time, the chasing plane is pointed at the front one, which means this is their velocity vector, or C prime, at this moment. There's no wind or anything, so the plane is definitely flying in the direction it's pointed. Now, we don't know the speed or the length of that vector currently, but we know the direction at least. That's more important because there's another vector pointing in that same direction, which is easy to find, and that's M minus C. For the visualization, M minus C is the same as M plus negative C, and putting negative C on top of M gives us a vector that points from the back plane to the front one. Then to deal with the lengths, I'm going to normalize the two vectors by dividing by their magnitudes, so they both have a length of 1. This is key because the dot product of two vectors, both with length 1 and pointing in the same direction, is 1. This is a fundamental equation. Yes, I could have just set the vectors equal to one another, but I'm doing this because in that episode when the mathematician is explaining pursuit curves, you can see that equation come on the screen, so now you know the meaning behind it. But still, it's not really obvious how to solve it yet. But if we go back to our snapshot, remember that the m vector is actually a known function of time. We're seeing it only at